All right, so I want to definitely respect Kristina's time. She only has from 6 to 7 for us, and we really appreciate you being here, Kristina. Kiss, sorry. Kiss, Sick Designs, love it. And I just want to introduce a little bit about Kiss. So Kiss is one of those innovators that's doing something different, and she's really a game changer. So in the fashion industry, as we know, you have to be able to compete. And the way to do that is to be different, to be seen, to be heard. And she's going to tell us a little bit tonight how she has been able to be seen and heard, and going from working with Calvin Klein and Vera Wang to creating her own successful alternative label. And now she's adorned Lady Gaga, Billy Porter, Debbie Harry, iconic figures in the industry, in the mainstream industry, and especially in the LGBTQ community. So without further ado, I can't possibly give the introduction that she can. We would love to hear, Kristina, Kiss, how you got started.
Thank you for having me, by the way. I appreciate it.
Thank you for your time and being here.
Yeah, happy to share my, my story, how I got to where I am today. I don't know if you guys know, but I think it was in the write-up, but basically I was from a small town in Pennsylvania, and the principal's daughter, a very small little town, and I was kind of, there was really not a lot of creative outlet there. So I got really frustrated, and eventually I was like, I'm going to New York. That's my only, I just want to go to FIT. I want to be in the creative world. There's no fashion in Pennsylvania in the Poconos. And I had like anger management problems. So that was kind of one of the things I needed an outlet for. So I and I knew I had to channel it in some way. So I told my parents, I was like, I'm going to New York. They're like, what are you going to, do you have a backup plan? I was like, nope, I'm just going to FIT. I'm going to go there. I have no other thing that I want to do. So I made that my main mission, my main goal. I had no backup plan. And I worked my butt off for trying to get in there for a few years. I had to go to a state school in PA first in order to get my gen ed courses. That was the agreement with my family. And I was like, okay, whatever I have to do. So, so I went to New York and went through a pretty crazy portfolio process with the professors and many different panels of professors and everything. Eventually, I did get accepted, and I went to FIT for accessory design. For 3 years, I got my BFA in accessory design. And I feel like that definitely, it was kind of a design major at FIT is a boot camp. And I feel like if you can get, from what I've experienced, if you can get through a design major there, or in any, probably fashion school in New York, if you can get through a design major, from my experience, you can get through anything. Like I didn't sleep. I barely slept. I never went out. I just made my main focus to kill it at school. And I did. I won all the awards my senior year. It was totally worth it. I killed myself, and it was 100% worth it. I learned a lot. I think that school is definitely a good way to start if you want to create your own brand or work for somebody else. I feel like you need to kind of learn the rules in order to break them. So that's kind of what I did. I learned everything that I needed to, and right off the bat, they kind of set you up with an amazing internship and a job, corporate-wise. However, at the same time, I developed my kind of own little side thing, which was my brand. So I had that. I kind of definitely started that at a very when I was younger. I tested it out in many different classes and projects because we were allowed to do that. So I tested out brand.
How would you describe your unique aesthetic to them? Because it was definitely unique, right? And so you developed that.
For sure. So I mean, it's art fashion. It's simply just an art fashion category. So it mixed between art and fashion. The way that I describe me and my aesthetic is it's like scary, sexy, and fashion. Scary, sexy fashion. I've added a lot of color. I try to kind of experiment in different ways. But as far as the look goes, I like to kind of make people's head turn. And I want them to kind of maybe like, tap me on the shoulder and be like, what the hell? what the hell is that?
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of always try to add an element of like something weird, something scary a little bit, fashion and some kind of sexy vibe personally. But yeah, it's like an alternative art fashion brand that kind of is very in the world of like kind of abstract art, because the medium that I work with is it's kind of like painting in a way, which is really, it's kind of fun. Yeah.
So do you feel like the pandemic has helped the freelance trend? Like, even though you had this training, and that's what, that's what these students here that are here tonight at NYSD, they're taking all of the fashion design courses with none of those core curriculum, right? So they're super hyper focused on getting through it, getting into the industry, getting a job, or perhaps starting their own brand. So do you think that maybe the pandemic has leveled the playing field, or do you feel like to be a freelance designer, like how important is having the education made it for you as a freelancer?
I mean, I think it definitely made it harder over pandemic, because of the pandemic, freelance corporate design didn't exist. However, my brand did. So, I did Calvin Klein for 6 years. I mean, I did many different brands. I did Betsy Johnson, Steve Madden, Juicy Couture, Calvin Klein, and then Vera Wang right before the pandemic. Freelance, editorial fashion, like runway shoe design. I think it was a good experience to have under my belt. But once the pandemic hit, I did see that there was nothing. So that was taken away from me. And I feel like from a lot of designers that just focused on maybe just corporate. And that's why I kind of, not that I had a backup plan, but I'm really happy that I had my own brand, and that's when Lady Gaga, actually dropped she's had my stuff for a little while, but it took a while to kind of, to photograph everything in the music video and many different shoots. But that's when she dropped all the social media. And that's when I got I was actually really busy during the pandemic. Mm-hmm. So, and it took a while for me to get back to freelance. I mean, it's still, a little bit tricky today, getting back into the office. So I think that it's hard to say, corporate is really important if that's like your passion. But if you have something else like brewing inside of you, you should explore it. If you feel like, hey, maybe I could do this. That's just kind of, I wanted to kind of pave my own, something that I didn't see, that I just felt inside of me that I had to get out.
And you go from a principal's daughter in a small town to, designing for Gaga and Billy Porter. So how did that bridge happen? I get that, in the pandemic, but can you show them maybe some of the things that led you to get to Gaga? Like, how'd you get in front of her people as a freelancer?
So, it does take a little while. It takes a lot of work. I mean, after pandemic, on the side of like working corporate, I had my own brand, my own identity, and my platform was nightlife in New York. I was kind of a club kid, and I loved it because it was a way of expressing myself visually. And I was a little punk running around for a while, and I liked to go to rock shows and, rip t-shirts and sell my t-shirts and all these other things like, chain necklaces and what have you, graphic t-shirts. And then I finally found this medium, silicone. And it was this drip aesthetic that I always wanted to find. And I finally realized that's what it is. So I started wearing my own art. I was my own muse. And I would go out to events and I would just push it onto people. And I would show up to, every event that was going on. And I would wear my looks, and people would eventually, and I would get photographed by all these amazing photographers that would. So it's about networking, it's about getting yourself out and showing New York, wherever, even if you're not getting paid. Now luckily I get like paid and hired to do this, to entertain and wear my looks, and other people pay to wear my things. However, in the beginning, it wasn't like that. I had to do the work. I had to like meet people. I had to be like, hey, this is what I do. Here's my business card at the time. Like, this is my stuff. Would you want to photograph it? And then the photographs would, cycle through social media. That was content for me to use. And then eventually, I would start hosting events in New York with Suzanne Barch and Amanda Lepore and Lady Fag and all these amazing old school club kids from like the 80s and like Richie Rich and all these people. And they brought me up. So it was kind of that was the platform, like nightlife in New York, like underground, like club kids. They really, and it's an interesting kind of community, like the LGBTQ community, that kind of comes together and supports each other and lifts each other up. And I'm just super grateful that I had the opportunity to be exposed to them and accepted by, everybody that is like myself, like all these amazing artists. And eventually, drag queens came into the queue. And I remember Aquaria, I first met her when she was super young. And she, slowly people started pulling my looks and doing custom pieces for RuPaul's Drag Race. And I was like, okay, well, we'll see how that goes. And then as soon as, Aquaria, she was in my scene and she started wearing my things. I did this custom amazing outfit for her.
Show us.
Yeah, I can. Okay. Let me show you guys.
So you feel like you were designing, the clientele that you were designing for was you, right? That had the same interest and you within your own community.
It was me. And then people wanted to look like me. Essentially, they wanted to wear what I was wearing. So I am Patfield always said that too. I was always my own, my bestseller,
Mm-hmm.
So Aquaria.
And for those that don't know, explain who Aquaria is.
The Age of Aquaria, which is the first 4 photos. She was kind of more, she was the winner of RuPaul's Drag Race season 10. And she was kind of a very well-known drag queen at this time because nobody really did like fashion, like a fashion drag queen. They're all different aesthetics are, I feel like, very specific in different ways, but hers was very specific, like editorial fashion. And that's why we work together really well. And we've done a lot of looks together. I've always worked, with many other drag queens from RuPaul. As you can see, Trinity the Track. One second, sorry guys. And
you developed this medium on your own.
In fashion, I did. Sorry, for some reason. In the fashion world, I did. Nobody was really using it in fashion, so it's usually used in silicone's usually used in sculpture, and also for like mold making, and also for like face prosthetics. So I just started using it in an entirely different way, which people are like, well,
it's so distinct.
Yeah.
That was your first. Aquarius was your first.
Aquaria was my first. And it kind of led me to working with, she actually was very good friends with Nicola Formichetti. And so that connection actually with Aquaria essentially led me to Lady Gaga, the stylist for Lady Gaga, Nicola Formichetti and the team, they actually ended up working with Aquaria after she won the season 10. And then their stylist reached out to me because they saw that, she was wearing my things and she won with this mermaid look. And so from there on, I started to do small things. The stylist reached out to me many times here and there. And then eventually then there was the first call for Gaga. And then I actually had many other calls. So I can kind of show you there. So I had a few, Gaga's obviously she's worn my stuff a few times, and that actually did lead to, her wearing a bunch of my pieces. And these were all released during pandemic.
Wow.
Which was amazing. And that was actually even before or after I got, Debbie Harry, Neil Patrick Harris, Billy Porter, Peaches. Those were all actually through Patricia Field. So if you guys are familiar with Pat Field, she's a really well-known New York stylist, and she used to have a few stores in New York. One of the big ones was on Bowery. She styled Devil Wears Prada, Sex and the City TV show. So she started representing my brand after the store closed, and she has an amazing following clientele. So the fact that that relationship actually also equally platformed my brand even more. So she, she had stylists coming to her, to our art fashion gallery. So they would pull a lot of our product that I would sell with Patfield. And that's how I was able to kind of, get my pieces on Debbie Harry, Billy Porter, Neil Patrick Harris. So, there's definitely different venues, different ways, avenues of getting your product to these celebrities and people. It's not just one way. You got there's many ways.
Can you show your aesthetic, the slide before, so that people could see this as your own muse? This is you going out.
So this is kind of where it all started. Yeah. So if you see, these are only a small handful, because I've been doing looks in nightlife in New York for, oh God, I don't even know now, 8 years, maybe 10 years. I can't even remember.
10 years, at least 10 years.
Probably 10 years. Yeah, actually, probably 10 years. So this is a very small portion. But yeah, I would always up the ante. Halloween, crazy events I would now get paid to do. And if I wasn't there, they would notice, and they would be like, hey, you got to come. Can you come through? We'll pay you to wear your looks. And then the performers, musicians, other artists would be like, hey, I'll pay you. Can we do a custom piece? Can you lend me this sample, that sample? So I was my main, I had to show my product off through me. I had to take photos, videos. I made sure I was there. I was at every major event to be photographed and share them.
Right. And so at the beginning, you weren't getting paid to.
No. Right. You kind of just have to do it if you really, if you really want to share your product and make it a business. You have to. It's kind of like knocking on doors, I guess. If you have a business back in the day,
yeah.
knocking on doors. That's what I did. I just went to every event. All my friends. I started networking to different groups of nightlife. Like musicians, like just old school rock dudes. Like every kind of scene that I could. Like industrial rock, club kids. Electronic goth, like industrial goth. I just kind of floated around with everybody, and I'm a social butterfly. I'm like my dad. So I love people, and I'm very genuine, and I'm not, it's not like I'm fake. It's kind of just, it just was very fluid to me. And I love this way of kind of expressing myself. And then actually I realized, I'm like, oh, this is like a lucrative business,
Right. And your community brought you in and accepted you and helped elevate you.
And yeah, exactly. They definitely helped. I mean, I don't think I'd be able to, I wouldn't have what I have now or be where I am today without my community and them helping me out. And the same with them. We all kind of help each other out in all the ways. Photographers, stylists, makeup artists, we all work together. Lighting, videographers, we all work together to lift each other up,
Yeah. So how did the connection with Patricia Field, and then she represents your brand as well?
So she reps my brand. Yeah. And that was one of the amazing platform. So after that happened, I can kind of go through some of these. So Patfield started repping my brand, and, she started selling my pieces at her art fashion gallery, which I can actually show you, which is actually is another stream of income for me, in the brand. As you can see, I started doing way more products, like not just, looks for me, but more functional pieces, like smaller pieces, which is really important. I mean, I did apparel, hats, masks, gloves, bags, everything. I mean, if you go onto patriciafield.com, you can see there's, I have my own little shop over there. So if you're interested in ordering something or buying, you can check out everything we have for sale there. But yeah, that definitely helped, obviously merch. She has an amazing following. So that was another form of exposure for me. And she also knows amazing stylists, which is how I got my things on, in the movie, like in the movie game, on TV, which I can also show you. But also before that, she also gave me the opportunity to put my pieces on the runway for Art Basel every year, and also in New York. So there's a mix
So
of.
for those that don't know, Art Basel is, you want to tell them a little bit about Basel?
Art Basels every year. I mean, right now I don't think they're doing it because of the pandemic, but in December once a year. It's actually in Miami, like South Beach, and also in Wynwood, which is very close by. It's kind of like the Brooklyn of New York for Miami.
Yeah, you're so Wynwood, I feel like.
Yeah, Wynwood. Yeah, so we always had Patfield would always rent out a huge gallery in Wynwood for Art Basel, and it was like a 4-day span of crazy events. So everybody from around the world would come to Miami to see art shows, exhibitions, for to buy your art. Everybody and people that would come around the world to buy and also exhibit their art. And we were, Patfield from New York. She had all these amazing art fashion artists that she repped, so we would all come with her, and we would sell our stuff at this art fashion gallery. And we would have runway shows and presentations and events there every year, which is huge exposure. We sold so much, and it just was the opportunity to get our product out to more people than just New York. So that was amazing. And you can see, we got to kind of have fun with it. We had so many, and these are just a handful of, different images, but we would rent out huge spaces. And she kind of gave, because I couldn't afford to do that by myself, so she, helped in that way to get our stuff out, myself, my brands, like my product out there to the world, or to at least, to a different city, even more. So that was, and again, she also got me, she knew the stylist for, The Greatest Showman and Gotham, amongst other shows, actually, and even more recently, but I can't talk about it yet. But so my product was on, movies and TV shows, which was amazing. And that's how I got it through Patfield as well. So there's definitely different, and that really gave me a lot of
acceleration.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. I got
visibility.
So much more, so many more commissions after these, after these shows and movie came out. So that was kind of big for me too.
Yeah, it's huge. So what would you recommend for these young designers? What is the best way for them to get their aesthetic out?
So what I would say is, I can even go through some collaborations that I've done as well. I think the main thing is being really consistent about the aesthetic of what you want to put out there. I think the thing that I did in the beginning that I realized is that I was kind of all over the place. I did too many different things. And I feel like once I found this median, I was like, all right, I'm not going to do any of the other things. I'm just going to focus on this aesthetic and make people realize this is me. This is what I do. And I want them to be able to recognize it from miles away. So if anybody saw this drip aesthetic and this material, they'd be like, oh, that's sick. That's sick. So I think that you should figure out the aesthetic and make it like iconically you. And I feel like that's the best. Be consistent and concise, and just figure out what your vision is and how you want to be seen and represented, and be specific on how you want to be represented. If somebody reaches out to you and you don't think that it's not the right fit for you or your brand's aesthetic, you have to say no, or say, no, you know what, this is how I would like to do it. Because I have a lot of custom commissions that, a lot of people reach out to me for, and I'm like, you know what, it doesn't sound like me. I don't want to do it because you want me to do it and pay me. I'd like to design it, and if you don't like to do it this way, then I'm probably the wrong person. So I would just say be consistent, and
it's okay to leave some people out.
Yeah, right? You have to learn to say no, because I used to say yes to too many things. I was overwhelmed. You gotta really focus on what you want. Just focus on the main projects and people that you're working with. And then also, where I'm getting into with the collaborations that I've done with different people, I feel like it's also good once you maintain that aesthetic. It's good to kind of step out of your realm of, like, let's say for me, fashion. So I had a lot of opportunities represented, and these are just a few, but there are a lot of opportunities presented to me, collaborations for doing like events. Like, for instance, right here on the left, I did a Halloween drip installation. And it was to drip on these mannequins that were hanging from the ceiling. as like a crazy large chandelier. So it was a really cool opportunity for me, like glow in the dark. So you can see that was kind of a cool collaboration that I did with this venue in Midtown, which was really amazing. And then also my friend has this high-end furniture brand, and they asked me to collaborate with them doing this crazy huge lamp, like this lampshade. And it was insanely large, but they had a studio. So we, that was a different collaboration that kind of got me out there a little bit more. I actually did art direction and production design and costume design for one of my good friends, musicians, Danny Blue, for Echo Black, amazing artist in New York, like downtown New York, for their music video. So I came up with all these mood boards. They hired me to do, art direction, production. I also did all the costume design. It was insanity, but it was amazing because it was it mixed costume, but also I got to know how to do art production and direction. So this was a really cool collaboration that I did. I did like 4-5 different looks and scenes and set designs, which was really cool. And also, again, like taking advantage of different audiences, right? So this was a really cool event collaboration. It was a fashion sketch night at the Society of Illustrators in NYC. So basically I would have my pieces on these models that were sitting in front of a group of illustrators, which I don't really know that world, and it was really amazing to see what they came up with, and they were really inspired by my drips and my looks. So then you can see these are the models that sat, and I sat myself for the artists, and then you can see all the different some of the different versions of how they were inspired, and they like sketched out, and they posted them all over social media. So that was another cool stream and avenue to get my work out there and just to collaborate with different people.
How important would you say social media is?
I mean, for me, it's all about visual, visual, and also connecting with my clientele. So to be honest, social media is my main source of getting my work out there, and also getting new clientele and commissions. So for me, it's very important. I think that if you are in fashion, I mean, it's aesthetics, it's fashion. It's very important. It's the most important thing that you can do. You have to, like when I started doing looks for myself, I had to make sure to capture the image, make sure to photograph myself, have other people photograph me. You have to get content. You have to capture that content. Otherwise, you're doing it for nothing. I don't mean to say that, but it is really important to capture your product and capture it in the best way you can so you can share it. And people see.
Right, and it's free. It's free. You don't have to hire a photographer or a videographer,
you
but
really
you have to be consistent, like you said.
Yeah. You don't always need to. And I feel like maybe younger, just maybe designers think that they have to have all this money for photographers and, lighting and this and that. But you know what? If I've had so many photographers that were inspired by my work, or makeup artists or hairstylists, stylists that reach out, that want to collaborate. I don't necessarily need all the money. We collaborate each other. They have something to shoot, and I get the photographs from them, so we kind of help each other. So in that respect, if you trade your work with somebody else's work, you don't need the money, and you help each other. And that's where it helps, to collaborate with other artists, because you kind of lift each other up and get yourself, out there without having all the money in the beginning, because it is expensive. And I don't want people to be discouraged to get your work out there thinking that you need all this money to hire photographers or models. You can kind of trade and help each other rise up. In the beginning, not everyone needs millions of dollars to do this.
Right. What about I heard you say mood boards, right? So that's super important with our students. So
I can actually show you, like, for instance, mood boards are really important. I mean, not only for me personally, which I do need, but also like, every corporate fashion world, initially you do have mood boards. References, the aesthetic, the vibe, the feel, the atmosphere. I mean, for me, I can give you an example of what I did for my brand, which was for this music video. I came to with the directors and videographers and everyone for this music video, and I came with my own kind of mood boards for every set that I did.
Oh,
and
okay.
So it's a bit more kind of this is more set design, but I wanted to kind of give like a visual of what I wanted. And I really, I try to give the vibe.
It's
But
so
yeah,
Dali to me. It's so like Salvador Dali
yeah,
vibe I'm getting.
but I was, melting, dripping from the ceiling. I kind of gave some quick little notes. Then I got into a little bit more, but I really just took reference images, which is what mood boards are all about. I wanted people hanging. You can kind of see I really tried to hone in on what I wanted to get done there without actually having the final product. Here it's stuff I did before, but this set was very like frozen drip, icicle stabbing, costs, set, just like the visual mood of the entire from just from the beginning. So it is really important to try to get your thoughts and processes, what you're thinking. You just have to get what's in your head on like visually it to somebody, so they get it. They get it a little bit. Suffocation trapped. This is like a world that I wanted to create. But yeah, it's really good visually. This is like a bloody hell set that I did as well. But just amazing. Yeah. And this, it involved like set design, art direction, production, and costume design. But so it was a lot. But but even I can kind of show you. Let's see, I have another one here. Like for instance, here's a mood board that I did for a.
Thank you for sharing this with us.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, this might not come up. I did I was hired to do kind of like a clown. I guess it was kind of a cloud circus look for Lady Fag one year, and it was actually for Givenchy. I mean, the fashion label Givenchy was the first time doing their I think it was the first time they were doing their fashion show in New York. Maybe like 5 years ago, I want to say. But I was hired by Lady Fag to do the after party, and the whole vibe was like circus kind of Harlequin kind of whatever. And they kind of wanted to see a little mood board. And for me, I was like, okay, and so this was like kind of the mood board for my look, like just for inspiration for me, like the way that I would do it. And it gave them an idea of, okay, well, we know where to place you because we had certain sets that we had to be placed on for entertainment purposes. So my look was kind of like that. I wanted to show you the look, but I couldn't find it immediately. But so, yeah, it's good for me and it's good for the people that you're working with to always have a visual just as like a roadmap.
And starting point. Yeah. So you could see that even from fashion to set design to events, you still have the same techniques and the same template that's really going to get your art out there.
Exactly. And then I can give you one other example for mood boards that
I love those.
Was for my friend was opening a flower shop in LA. And they wanted to collaborate with me doing some decorations, like within the shop. So I was like, okay, what can I do? That involved my drippy aesthetic. So I was like, okay, some chandelier work. So I just kind of, again, a quick mood board, like true shiny drip, like chandeliers, maybe flower drip collaboration. So it looks like the flowers would be dripping in that way. So kind of, again, giving you the visual, maybe actually dripping flowers on the bottom. Just to, again, give like a visual of what I was trying to get out, maybe branch braces, like spiky drip chandelier, not actually the silicone. So just different mood boards that could open up a conversation about, what potentially this could lead into and collaborating with different artists.
So Janet asks, what kind of digital skills do you need in order to be a successful freelancer?
So from when I started, I think the basic skills for me, and actually even in freelance, like in corporate, you definitely need to know basic skill, well, probably more advanced skills, Photoshop, Illustrator, Adobe, obviously Excel. And now it's even further. I mean, right now, I think like, Adobe in general, but Photoshop, Illustrator, I know with my eyes closed. Those are my main, getting through school. But that was also a little bit ago. So I know there's different things. I know that you were talking about Canva, but as far as technical, like we have to do technical specs a lot of the time. In corporate design, like Calvin Klein, you have to kind of and Vera Wang, you really have to communicate with your factory, like product development. So that's not just creative stuff, that is technical skills, which involves Illustrator, Photoshop, a presentation. Yes, like kind of a lot of the Adobe suite you got to really perfect. And now what I would advise as well, I just got an iPad, and it's actually even better because I'm used to hand sketching, but I've been getting my hand used to sketching on like Procreate, which is kind of, you're literally just sketching on an iPad because it's way quicker. And that's what I feel like the industry in corporate design is looking for, whether it be in fashion design, accessory design, whatever it be. I think they're definitely seeing, you have to be quicker at things, because if you hand sketch on paper, you have to scan, you have to clean it up in Photoshop, you have to put in Illustrator. I would try to really develop your skills immediately onto, your iPad or your computer, like a tablet. That's where it's going. And I think that, that world, corporate's really looking to get things done quicker. So I would try to sketch.
And that's where 3D maybe comes in as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Like on Procreate is an amazing app on an iPad, or I think you can probably get it on your laptop too. But you would just need some kind of tablet to draw correctly. So that's been amazing. I've been working with that a lot. And also my tattoo artist friends that's why I've worked with my tattoo artist friends, because that's how they sketch their designs, and it goes right to the printer. I feel like hand sketching on paper, and I don't know, you gotta be really quick at it, but you have to kind of move with the times. You gotta develop these skills that are that are now. You can't be. You kind of got to keep up with it all, and that's what I'm learning as I do freelance for corporate design still.
And do you feel like that there's any? Do you feel like as a freelancer and as a disruptor, because I really feel like that's what you are, you're a disruptor in the industry, showing, hey, this is my style, and changing it. Do you feel like there's any threats that you would need to address, or anything, as you move forward as a freelancer and you want to keep expanding and building on what you've created thus far? Like, how do you address any of those threats? Like, I mean, you just made it through a pandemic, and you actually had the most work of your life. So what kind of recommendations would you give to these emerging designers and these students that are either coming into fashion school or graduating? Like, how do they remain on top? How do they keep disrupting to stay relevant?
I mean, again, just kind of, I think it's probably like awareness, I think it's good to be aware, because that's what I try to do. I think it's just being aware, being on social media, watching. I mean, I love watching, being aware of like what's on the runway, being aware of what's on the streets, like who's wearing what, social media, influencers. I think it's about, if you want to be in this industry, you have to be aware of everything that's going on. You have to get out there. You have to network. You have to meet the people, talk to the people. If there's, a show, maybe try to talk to the right people, meet the right people, and they'll hook you up with, an invitation to this event or that event. Then you know what's going on there. Then you can meet the photographers. You can meet more stylists. I would say just be aware and involved as much as you can, and talk about what you want, and get it, like, just talk about what you want and ask for things you want, because believe it or not, if you ask more than often than not, somebody will answer and will help you. If you need help, usually people will help. Not everyone is, an asshole.
Yeah. So how long did it take you to develop your style post graduation from fashion school?
To develop my brand, my aesthetic. I think to establish it, it was slow, but and gradual. And every year it got a little bit more exposure every year. I want to say after graduating, maybe maybe like 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, maybe like 4 or 5 years after, maybe 4 years, like when I really got into the silicone and that medium. Yeah, and really kind of branded myself, got my logo going, got my trademark, an LLC. But it did take about 5 years probably to really, develop it. And like not sleeping, not really going out to go out, just to go out. Like I didn't drink, I didn't really kind of do that, but I went out to really just be like, okay, I'm working. But you have to be really focused and you have to know what you want. You can't stay out all night. You got to really, you really got to be focused on it and have an amazing work ethic on your own, not only for somebody else, but for yourself.
Right. Because sometimes if people are looking at it, they think, oh, she's a party animal, but you were working, right?
Exactly.
This was pure work. This was you being your own advertisement, your own everything, right? So, for 4 years of you building your brand, you wore all of these different hats. Your muse, you were your model, figuring out who is going to photograph you, developing that style. And, do you have like some of the pictures from Susan Barsh and like some of those early on days? Like, I think that they would be interested in that. And Jackie asked, how long does it take to make pieces like in your aesthetic? Like, we don't want you to divulge your specific, patent.
It's kind of a trade secret. It's kind of a trade secret. But it is, again, it kind of depends. I have like an idea of a look if it's for myself, let's say, for one of these looks. I mean, again, some of these actually vary from old looks to newer looks. Like this one that I'm highlighting here, that's kind of an older one from back in the day. Some of them kind of vary. This one's kind of a little bit older. This one here. So, I mean, there were just so many. It's hard to, but if you want to check out my Instagram, you can kind of scroll back a bit. But
yeah, I'm going to put it in the chat.
Sorry?
Dominique's going to put your Instagram in the chat. Sorry,
well, yeah. Cool. Okay, great. I can do that too. So it always depends. If I'm trying to do a look for an event that I get hired for, I would kind of think about it, figure out the theme. If there's a theme, I would swish it out of my head, make a small mood board. And then when I sit down to actually execute it, I would probably give myself, the day. There is a certain cure time to my medium. So I have to put that into a factor. If I'm doing commissions, sometimes the commissions would take longer because I have to take my time. For me, I do them quicker because I don't need them to be perfect. But some commissions that are insane would be, it could be 1 to 2 weeks to really get them to where I want them to be. Because I don't want to rush stuff for, commissions for clients. Unless it's Lady Gaga, because the thing is with Lady Gaga, she has a quick turnaround time sometimes. and this is the other thing, you have to be kind of open and willing for quick turnaround times in order to accept the opportunity. I mean, a lot of artists and stylists in fashion, as everybody knows, it's a very quick, things happen right away. Stylists change their minds, like in a day or 2 days. So sometimes you get the call and you have to have something ready for them not from scratch, 2 days later. And you have to be like, you have to roll your sleeves up and be like, all right, let's do this. And I would just not sleep for 2 days. And that's how you kind of have to have that work ethic and mentality if you want to do this and if you want to be successful.
Jocelyn B said, how do you figure out how to charge once you start charging? How did you figure out how to start charging for your personal
I think, Patricia Field actually kind of, she kind of helped me with that because it was really difficult because I created this whole new thing and it's hard. It's still hard for me to judge that, but I kind of factor in the cost, how much time, how many hours I put into it, the creativity of it. And basically I feel like initially you set the prices for X, Y, and Z. And then after a while, you get a bigger following and other people see other people wanting, there's more demand for it. And then after a while, you see how much people do pay or how much they would be willing to pay. And then after a while, I kind of was like, you know what? I actually do deserve more. And Patfield would be like, yeah, you established yourself more. She's like, you're now ready to kind of raise your prices because, you know, you've established yourself. You have a lot of credibility. So I think after you work so hard to get that credibility, you have stylists that pull your things. It's cool enough and good enough to be photographed in different magazines and different, you know, on different artists and musicians. You kind of have to build your content and repertoire of to get that credibility to be able to raise your prices. And also at a certain point, I'd be like, listen, I can't do it for any less than this. And I would raise them up. And I did have many different price point changes. You have to test them out. I don't want to say test them out, but you have to know your worth, because I feel like stylists and clients would also respect you more if you do raise your prices a bit more, because that means you know your worth of your product. And I feel like they respect that more. After a while, I would raise the prices, and then I'd be like, oh, and then, you know, some people would be like, oh, of course, yeah, I totally get that price point. They would pay it. And then some people wouldn't. But the fact that I know that certain people would, I was like, yes, I am, you know, I am worth that. That's totally, like, I know my worth, and other people do as well. And if you know, if certain people don't want to pay that, then they just have to save up, or, you know, I can't. It's my time, my energy, and my creativity. So you have to know your self-worth after a while. You can't.
Peter W asks, how did you do the changeover from not getting paid to getting paid? What was that break for you?
I think what I did, I finally realized, like, I felt it when these major artists like Age of Aquaria, once I got put on television, like on VH1 with Age of Aquaria, once you get that first celebrity, put your stuff out there, and they tag you on social media, and the images of them in your work, like that major, even like Lady Gaga. I mean, then once you have you have that opportunity comes to you to work with a celebrity clientele, and they share it on social media. I mean, that's when my brand just really got shot up from there. I mean, Aquaria really kind of gave me wings. And from there, everyone started hitting me up and wanting to pay me for this, that, and even more than I could ever imagine. And Lady Gaga, even more. Debbie Harry, you know, Billy Porter, all these amazing icons. Every time one of them would wear and share them, or even like performing in my product, I definitely saw a difference in that realm. So I think it's like a marker in your just in what you're doing. It just made a huge.
And for those that came in so late, because we still just had a few people admitted, how did you connect with Patricia Fields? And do you feel that she helps guide you as your marketer, or is that something that they should look into?
Yeah. So, you know, the fact that, you know, it was actually through doing Nightlife originally, again, because she used to be in that Club Kid world. She would hire all these amazing Club Kids like Richie Rich and all these artists that I actually now work with, these art fashion artists. She would hire them all at her store on Bowery. And her and Suzanne Barch, which is an Amanda Lepore, they were all connected from back in the day. And I think they try to find and connect and bring together like these interesting group of creative artists in New York. So I actually originally was connected to her through one of my friends, Scooter LaForge, if anybody knows who he is. He's an amazing fine artist, like a painter. And he also does art fashion with Patfield. He did a photo shoot. We did a photo shoot with Patty Wilson for Italian Vogue, which was crazy, with Suzanne Barch. And so basically it was like somebody that knew somebody that was like, this would be perfect for you. Let me I think you would fit well here with Patfield. Let me get you a meeting. And I was like, that'd be great. So I got connected through a photo shoot that I did, that I got hired for because of Nightlife, because I did these looks. So it's out of like doing this kind of, just doing these looks after a while, I got hired to do, you know, to be in like photo shoots for Vogue. I did many different photo shoots for different publications, but this kind of led to that. And then I met different artists that knew I would be a good fit for, you know, to be with Patfield, for her to rep my brand within this small collective of art fashion artists. So she, and as soon as she saw my work, I gave her a presentation of all my work, and she was obsessed with it because it wasn't like anybody else. So she immediately kind of inducted me into her family of artists that she represented. And she gave me the opportunity to have like a showroom, social media presence, our own, my own shop on the website, so that I can, have clientele through there. So, and also again, doing Art Basel, different events during Fashion Week in New York. So this kind of led to that too, and now she's an amazing, she still gives me amazing advice if I ever have a question. She's very, she's very there to help me, like my mom, like my art fashion mom. She gives me a lot of advice if I have anything because we're like her kids, like we're art fashion children, she wants the best for us. She wants us to thrive. And I'm happy
you can still do your own thing on your own social. And
sure. Yeah. So I do specific things with her. I sell, and then I have my own clientele. So I work with her, but I also have my own clients. So
do you think that that's one of the important things to stress as a freelancer, these multiple streams of income? And
absolutely. I feel like that's, and some people, if you end up with one person, I don't want to say, sometimes they would want to be selfish and just have you just for them. I mean, not going to lie, when I was at Calvin Klein, I remember being called to the office, called to my boss's office, and he would actually, he would be like, hey, you either have to kind of just do the corporate thing, or you're getting a little wild. So they try to kind of tame me and try to just be theirs, because they thought it was too much. And I was like, all right, well, I'll just block all of you and I will do my own thing still. I just won't tell you about it, because I didn't want to be tamed by one. I just have one thing that I do like a robot. So I had to separate that. And some people just want to own you, but like, no, I feel like that's exactly it. You should have all these. That's why I've been collaborating with so many different people. And I can do that with my brand. I can do different events, and now working with like the House of Yes in Brooklyn. Like I'm training with them to host and to be somewhat of an aerialist. Like in my work, it kind of led to that. Like I'm hosting different crazy events with different people. So you should never just think that the one thing is the one way to go in regards to income. I mean, there's just so, especially in New York, there's just so many different people to work with. And Patfield is different than Suzanne Bartsch. Suzanne Bartsch is different from, all these different venues that I work for as well, than Lady Fact. So, music, directing a music video, that's totally separate. All these different collaborations. Yeah. There's just so many different things.
I love that. I think that's great advice. And we have a couple of more minutes, and I just got one more question from Bianca Y, and she wants to know if she could ask how you got the idea to use silicone drips for your design.
So yeah, that's actually that's a really good question. Let me come back into the thing here. Oh.
And if you have any other questions, if you are not sending them to me directly, put them in the chat, because we have just 5 more minutes. And
yeah, can you guys see me? Okay, cool.
Yes.
So it's a funny story. So with the silicone, I can quickly try to share this story. But basically, I was doing a lot of performance. I was putting on shows at music venues. I was hiring models to do some crazy performances, and I wanted this specific aesthetic on these models, and I didn't know how to achieve it. And I wanted to pour wax on them, and I was like, that's not a good idea. So my boyfriend at the time, he was a musician, and he had this face prosthetic artist. And so he was putting prosthetics onto his face, which is what the silicone is used for. So he hooked me up with this FX makeup artist, and he was like, oh, you want to do this? He's like, why don't you use the silicone and drip it on, and you can get that aesthetic. And I was like, oh, really? He showed me this FX makeup material, and I tried it out on these models, and I put it on their shoulders, and I think I dripped it on something else. And then that was kind of, I took it and ran with it. I was like, wait, I can do anything now. So I did like drip necks, and then I started doing bodices. I dripped it on blazers. So it was actually, it came from an FX makeup artist. She's the one that first showed me this medium, which is totally outside of the world of fashion. I mean, in regards to design, you know.
Right. And that's why I think key is the collaborations and doing all of these different, you know, adjacent and parallel industries to the fashion world, and, you know, joining in with other people.
They all cross paths in some way, you know. They all work together. We all work, even music as well. Like, I mean, in every way.
I just feel like, Kristina, you gave such great advice. Kiss. I'm sorry. I got to take the school principal out of me. Kiss, I think that one of the biggest things that will stand out from anything is that, you know, you created your own story, you created your own aesthetic, you stuck true to your brand. And even as you said, once they were ready to pay you, if it didn't align with your values, you didn't do it. Yeah. And I think that that's what's made the difference and has really niched you out in an industry and created your own little niche that no one could really compete with, right?
And it's really cool because I have people now, whenever I see them, they're like, you're sick, or they, you know, it means a lot to me, but they are like, they always say, even people I don't really know that well that are a fan, they're like, you always can tell that it's sick. And I get teary eyed. I'm like, oh my God. Because like finally, like people know who that is.
And that work that you did paid off.
Yeah. Whew.
Yeah.
A lot of work, but worth it.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Like from everybody, thank you so much. It was very interesting. I'm getting text through here. Thank you so much. So really inspiring. We really appreciate it. We want to be conscious of your time, and thank you so much for joining us.
Sure. Thank you guys.
Everybody, you know, if you want to follow Kiss, her Instagram is on there. It's sick_kiss. Sana says thank you. Everybody, it's rolling in right now, the thanks. And please, if you want to look for more of her work, Patricia Fields, artfashion.com, right? And
artfashion.com. And you can see Sick Designs as one of the artists. You can kind of go through that work, or sickdesigns.com as well. So either one.
Yes. Awesome. So we'll put it in the chat, and, you know, this is recorded, as I said at the beginning, and it'll live on the website. So if you ever want to come back, and we'll put some other things in the chat for you. We'll definitely send you some bulleted points, and thank you for sharing your experience with us. And thanks, Dominique, for putting sickdesigns.com. We do have, people are still coming in, you know, it's 7:00, but we do have a new foundational courses. If you want to be a fashion designer, if you want to be your own freelance designer, the best way to start is to get into school and start working at what you love and developing your own personal style. And that does start on January 11th. So please email us and reach out if you have any questions. And thanks everybody for joining us. Kiss, thank you.
Thank you guys.
Kisses, thank you.
Thank you guys for, you know, for attending.
Oh, you rock.
My experience.
Bye.
Guys, have a good night.